Welcome to Pep Talks with Eric, where we shift gears from negative feedback loops and drive towards the life we truly want. I'm your host, Eric Ayers. I believe in the power of Ubuntu. I am because we are. Together, we'll explore how connections fuel our growth and create amazing experiences. In this podcast, we'll tune out the noise of the world and tune into what we really want and what really matters. Right. Guys, I am so excited for you to be joining us today on another episode of Pep Talks with Coach Eric. I'm Eric, and I'm your host. And today's episode, it's going to be an energetic one. We are going to dive into some amazing topics, and we're going to take some deep dive into energy. I'm joined today. My guest is Drew Mack, and he is a peak performance flow state activation coach who helps people unlock their full potential by mastering the art of energy management. And that is so profound. That is so intriguing to me. And we're going to dive into that. He's had background in NLP, quantum physics, and on and on and on. So now his focus, and I say now, his focus has been on how can food be medicinal? And so we may dive into a little bit of some lion's mane or blue lotus. And as the conversation goes, as their medicinal powers at our core energy level. So he does all kinds of things. Maybe we'll tap into his uplift driving experiences. I'll let him tell you more about that. And opening and activating endocannabinoid systems. So even scientific. I saw a quote from his profile from iSign that said, everything is energy. And I think that pretty much sums up what I get every time I speak with Drew. So without further ado, let's dive into this. Drew, man, welcome. And thanks so much for joining us.
No, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. And that quote is exactly right. I mean, we're flowing energy all the time. Most people don't think about it. But you're flowing energy all the time. If you're not flowing energy, you're a corpse. So managing that energy flow is, in my opinion, one of the most important things that anybody could learn how to do. And more specifically, it's about learning how to manage your emotional energies. I mean, there's lots to it. There's other parts of it, but our emotional energies, our thoughts are things. Our thoughts create energy, and the emotional energies are the strongest ones. So if you're operating more consistently around worry, frustration, overwhelm, fear, you're creating resistance to the flow that naturally wants to flow around you. Everybody's heard of, an aura, for example. Abraham Hicks, people know it as an energy vortex. We all have one around us. And if you're operating in these lower vibrational frequencies, you're creating resistance. You're not allowing that to flow as well as when you're operating in appreciation and love and empowerment and, prosperity, abundance. When you're experiencing those emotions, everything flows better. Everything's at a higher vibrational frequency, and not only influences you, it influences everything around you. So pretty important stuff.
Awesome. I'm glad there's so many aspects we could tap into there. I want to start off by saying one of my foundational philosophies is the Ubuntu culture of I am because we are. And simply in the way you described that, if my energy is flowing and I'm tapping into those higher level energies of prosperity, of love, of, we'll call it the euphoric type energies, it's not only affecting me positively, it's affecting everyone I'm around. So I literally am because we are, and it's a group, it's a culture. So being in tune with my energy has a positive effect on humanity. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah, it goes out in the quantum field and it influences everything, not just around you, but out there. And so the more people, there's a collective energy, and, for the most part, most people operate around worry, frustration, overwhelm, fear, and that creates a collective energy that is, will influence other people. But the cool part is that it only takes one that's really in tune to kind of flip that switch and have an influence on a lot of other people, to influence a million people, for example. So we all have the opportunity to have an influence on the greater whole of humanity just by managing our energy. It's 100%.
which is which is fascinating because I'm saying we as a collective society can fall prey sometimes to the idea of what can one person as myself can do to for change. And based on what you said now is that we have the capacity at a quantum level to tap into the quantum field and have change on thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of people based on our evolution or elevation of our energy. Did I hear that correct?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I see it all the time. You just have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do is I drive a pedicab with a trailer around the University of Michigan campus in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And in that trailer, about a year and a half ago, I put a vortex energy activation table in it, which keeps that trailer, because it's all metal, at a high vibrational frequency. So I've got my energy up and I've got the trailer energy up. So I'm driving around in an environment that's a really high vibration environment. And I've seen people get into that trailer not having a very good day, for example, for whatever reason. And within 5 or 10 minutes, they go, I forgot what I was worried about or whatever, when they get out, they're going to take that forward and they'll have an influence on somebody else. And it just sort of spreads. I mean, it's fun to watch.
Yeah. And anyone who has not seen this, Drew posts pictures on this on social media, and it is really something awesome. And the people that he gets to interact with and change the trajectory of their day, of their week, of their lives is pretty dang profound. I love it. So what got you to this point? What got you? Because I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you haven't always been um, someone who understood energy and how to manipulate and manage the flow of your energy.
Yeah. Most people doing this work didn't start there.
That is correct.
Yeah. So I've been an entrepreneur for most of my adult life. And I was fortunate enough when I was in my late 20s to go down that road, the entrepreneurial road. And in the process, I met a guy who basically is a brother from a different mother and father, who taught me techniques from neuro-linguistic programming and NLP. And that started me down the road to, study people like Deepak Chopra. Before that, I was really more of a scientific guy. I loved biology, for example, and there was no energy in biology when I was in high school. And so for whatever reason, that started me down the road of quantum physics. And then one day in somewhere around 2000, mid 2000, I was just doing a self-evaluation and I thought, you know what? Oh, that led me to, by the way, people like Tony Robbins, Dennis Wade, positive thinking. So, and I was teaching this stuff. I was teaching neuro-linguistic programming and from a communication standpoint. And one day I just was doing a self-evaluation and I thought, I got stuff over here I'm happy with, but I got stuff over here I'm still not so happy with. I must be missing a piece to the puzzle. So I went looking for answers. And sure enough, you go looking for answers, you're going to get them. And I met somebody that taught me how to meditate. And I'd never meditated before. Before that, it seemed really airy-fairy to me. And particularly because of the way people described it, but whatever. So what I didn't realize at the time is he was teaching me the basics of an active meditation that Jose Silva had created years before.
Okay.
So that wasn't part of it, but I didn't realize that, I guess. And I wasn't meditating every day at the time. I was meditating every once in a while, but following his guided system. But I realized when I did it, that's all. And so I just started doing it more, right? And then I'd never understood anything about law of attraction. That seemed airy fairy to me as well. And sure enough, I found somebody that taught me from a scientific perspective what law of attraction represented. And it made sense. That clicked, something clicked in my head. And that's when I started sort of putting two and two together. It's like, okay, so if I'm using these thoughts from this guy that taught me, and I now understand more about law of attraction and emotional frequencies, I wonder if I could start playing with that, bringing in some neuro-linguistic programming stuff like anchoring and visualizations, and kind of tying that in with a little bit of quantum physics thoughts that I had. And I started doing my own stuff. And after, I don't know, it was a couple of years probably, I attracted a law of attraction group. And they were local here in my area. So I showed up to the meeting one day, and I'd been doing this all on my own. I had no guidance. I was just piecing this all together on my own. And I showed up at the meeting, and the facilitator was there. I went up and introduced myself after the meeting because I'm like, oh, this is a good energy group. And he just looked at me and said, "Look at you all lit up." I had no idea what that meant. I was like, what are you talking about, man? And I said, "What's that mean?" He goes, "Your energy, dude, is just incredible." And I'm like, okay, whatever. About 8 months later, he came to me at one of our potluck dinners, and he said, I've been teaching law of attraction and energy, this stuff, for over a decade, and I've never seen anybody grow into it as fast, literally use the word grow into it as fast as you have. What are you doing? So I told him about these techniques that I had pieced together for myself because I wanted to keep myself vibrating at high levels. And he said, that's interesting. When you're ready to teach that, let us know, because that sounds like it could be beneficial. I just looked at him and I said, "Dude, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm never going to be teaching any of this stuff." And he just looked at me and said, "Be very careful about it. What you say you're never going to do it." Right. In the process, I studied under one of the probably most well-recognized energy workers, energy healers in the world. I was drawn to his course. So then I'm putting all of that energy movement stuff into what I was doing. And that's when it really started taking off. Then I attracted Lyft, being a Lyft driver. And at first I was like, what am I doing? I don't feel like driving around all over the place. And the second or third person got in my car, and they were so far away from the energy that I could palpably actually feel it. And it dawned on me, oh, this is going to be practice. I'm going to have to learn how to keep my energy level high, not have anybody else influence that, which is one of the things that this energy worker taught me how to do. And then see if I can, keep my energy high enough to have a positive influence on people that get in the car. And a lot of times it was without saying a word. And I gave over 14,000 rides in about 4 years. And I literally have thousands of stories of how maintaining your energy field, no matter what the person is coming into your energy field is experiencing, can have a positive influence. Like, just for, paraphrasing examples, I had many, many people get in the car, in various stages of being pissed off at the world for whatever reason. And by the time they got out of the car, they're like, "Okay, Drew, thanks for the ride. I really appreciate it. That was a great ride. Thanks." And we hardly said anything. Yeah. So I was like, maybe I should start teaching this. So, and then COVID, I was going to do the workshops with my friends that were doing the law of attraction group. And then COVID hit, and I'm not really a tech guy at that point. So it took a couple of years to get something going online, but essentially got something together about a year and a half ago that that I like, that is having a really, really positive influence on people really quickly. So I call it the ultimate pineal gland activation system. And that's probably a whole nother story.
Yes. Yeah, we will. We'll hopefully we'll have time to tap into that. There's so much that you uncovered in that, and thank you for sharing. I love the fact so I'm scientific as well. I'm very analytical, and sometimes my head is all in and I leave my heart out here because I'm trying to figure it out. Like, what is this? The way you describe that is very beneficial to at least me because it says here you can have a framework, but give yourself permission to throw in who you are and what you know is you're capable of creating through these learned processes. Otherwise, if we're just learning to learn, all we're doing is gathering knowledge. But how do we put that into application? So I love the fact that you had this NLP framework, background, understanding. And then now we're going on this energy journey, and you're like, how do I start intertwining all of this together? And then it culminates with practice because, you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza describes it as we have to go from thought to do to be. We have a thought, we want to do something, but we have to do it in order to become the being aspect of it. And so you use the lift opportunities as practice, as doing. And I'm curious, twofold question. One, how did it feel when, if you ever absorbed the energy of someone that came in that you didn't want to during that practice? And if you did, how did you cope with that? How did you offer yourself forgiveness to move into continuing practice?
So it never happened.
It never happened. Okay. I would love to
Never
know
happened.
how.
It's part of what I teach. It's part of
Okay.
my daily routine. I get myself into the states I want to get into. I don't do this consciously anymore because I don't have to. I've practiced it enough. But initially, it
Right.
was a practice. It was one of the aspects of energy work that my energy worker friend who taught me. It's basically giving yourself permission to own your space. Now, there's
Okay.
piece to it, but um, so it's a permeable barrier. So it's not like I'm just, shutting everybody out. You want to be able to experience what people are experiencing. You want to be able to feel, you want to be able to empathize with, but I'm just not allowing them to influence me because, you know, I own this space. Like this is my environment. Now I'll empathize with you. I'll understand where you are. I pick it up right away, but you're not getting in mine. So for example, we used to do something in these law of attraction group meetings that they were talking called readership. And so there, there's a lot of people that do readings that read energy and psychic mediums and they're reading energy. I do some of that stuff myself. I do lots of reading. I do lots of activation stuff. I had a couple of people that were experienced readers. Some of them weren't. The couple of them that would go, okay, so I'm going to read you now. I'm like, okay, good luck. It's hey, so well, all I'm getting is really good. I'm like, yeah, that's all you're going to get because you're not allowed in.
Yeah.
And then they would say, well, will you let me in? And I would say, because I could tell their energy. I'm like, yeah, sure, come on in. And they're like, whoa. That's, I got really happy. I'm like, well, yeah, that's because I own my space. And it goes back to practice, right? It's just something, it's not a diploma you hang on the wall
Right.
and have it forever. Every day I get up and I do my routine, depending on the day. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's an hour and a half, whatever it is. I don't care. Just
Yeah.
depends on how I feel. I'm not leaving my room until I do. Like I know for a fact that before I walk into any environment, my energy is going to precede me. So I have to set my tone for the day. It's sort of like, our pineal gland, for example, is a not just a receiver, it's also a broadcaster. And this is where people really struggle because we're not just receiving, we're also broadcasting. Now, if I'm in my car and have my radio tuner and I want to listen to 107.1 FM all day long, what's my work? Well, I tune my tuner to 107.1 FM and I just leave it there and I don't touch it, right? That's where law of attraction and your emotional frequencies come in. It's the same thing. If I want to experience appreciation and love and joy and happiness, prosperity and clarity and focus, etc., all these high vibration emotions, my work is to bring those in and allow my body, the whole body, to calibrate to those frequencies. And then get to the point where that's where I'm operating from. And law of attraction brings me more and more and more of it. Whenever something comes up that I don't want, because you can't know what you do want unless you know what you don't want. So we're going to get stuff we don't want. It's just part of who we are. But what most people do is something comes up that they don't want and they go, oh, I don't want that. I got to wrestle that to the ground and kill it. "Urgh." Well, you get 100% of what you focus on, 100% every time.
Yeah.
So if you're focusing on killing that thing you don't want, guess what you're focusing on? The thing you don't want. Whereas if you can catch it by building your awareness muscle, by bringing in these high vibrational frequencies, first thing in the day, then you're going to catch it. You're aware, oh, that's something I don't want. And I just simply shifted. That's something I don't want. What's the other end of that stick? It's over here. This is what I do want. And just focus there. This energy goes away. And that's the practice. It's the problem, the challenge, not a problem. There's no problem. The challenge is we're not problem solvers and solution identity. That's another issue. Right? The challenge is most people have been operating around worry, frustration, overwhelm. They've been conditioned to operate there for so long. They don't even remember what it feels like to operate in love because they don't remember what it was like when they were 2, when they operated in pure love.
Yeah.
So that's part of the challenge is since they don't remember it, they just think that this is normal to have the reaction to this. So that's the conditioning, right? The awareness, if you get the awareness, you can bring in all the frequencies that you choose to operate within and feel them and actually visualize it and get your whole body involved in calibrating to that. It's instant when something comes up you don't want. It becomes easy. Oh, don't want that.
Yeah.
Got to shift over here.
I love how this is it's a shifted perspective, but it's more than that because it's bringing in the emotions with that. My shift in my journey began with understanding that there's a different lens to see the world through. It's not always what I don't want. I can actually look at what I want. And the challenge that you articulated so brilliantly is I could always see what I didn't want, and I could always kind of imagine and dream what I wanted, but the feeling was always towards what I didn't want, which why am I not going over there? Because that's what I want. And if that's what the law of attraction teaches. And so my introduction to that was understanding that our emotion is our energy in motion. And so that thought then drives that energy towards wherever we want to go. And to your point, in the morning, it's the best time to set intention of this is what I want. And if anything comes in that doesn't align with that, no, thank you. This is what I want. And it's almost like we're creating a different habitual pattern. So for so long, if we haven't experienced love since we were 2, like the example you gave, we've created and concreted in this negative feedback loop of, I don't want this. I don't want this. I get more of what I don't want. I don't want this. And we continue going until the point of, like you said, we don't even recognize the energies. And that's where I found myself is the only emotion I could feel was sadness, and it was exhibited in anger. That's it. Nothing else I had capacity for. So going through and feeling the different emotions, man, that's a journey in itself that, it was it was the most amazing and difficult thing I think I've ever been through. But it's awesome. And I'm wondering, all that to say, I'm wondering if as we go back and we're tapping back into this these high frequency energies that we may have left, in our childhood, are we remembering that as it comes in, or is this a brand new pathway that we're traversing and building as we continue down this journey of higher elevation?
Yeah. So, good question. And it's sort of a two-part answer. And let's go back for a second to properly answer. Go back to a second. One of the things you said was really important. And that is the best time to do this is first thing in the morning. Two reasons. Number one, momentum. And so law of attraction is the momentum creator, if you will. Law of attraction, some people say, I tried to work with law of attraction. Don't work with law of attraction. It's always on, right? It's just creating momentum wherever your energy is going, wherever your thought energy, in particular, emotional energy is going. So when we sleep at night, when you're unconscious, law of attraction really doesn't have any influence, which means that when you first wake up in the morning, you're probably pretty high on the emotional scale. You're probably operating somewhere, up closer to love, probably joy or happiness, unless you go back and grab the thought that had you upset from yesterday. Or what most people do, go back and grab the thought that had them upset from 10 years ago. So are we remembering the old energy? Yes. That's one of the things that's keeping it alive because you're focusing on it. You're going, oh, I remember that thing that happened and that happened. And that perpetuates because it's got momentum. It's just got momentum. If you can shift the momentum to appreciation more often, you're going to get momentum rolling down that track. So, for example, one of the little tricks that I focused on when I first started is that I would, every time I need something or every time something happened, like anytime something happened in a lift car that I thought that I recognized, it's like, well, that's evidence of what I'm working on. I would say and think to myself out loud, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that because that's bringing in more appreciation. And so while we're there, words mean something. A lot of people talk about being grateful. And not that there's anything wrong with that. But when you're talking about an energy, you're talking about energy. It's very specific. It's a little fine tuning once in a while can throw you off.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when people are grateful for something, they're thinking to themselves, man, I'm grateful I got this because I used to have this. Okay, now you're keeping used to have this in the equation. So you're either neutralizing it or going, I'm grateful I have this because I used to have this, and now you're bringing that one in, and it's dominant, right? Appreciation is a better word from an energy standpoint. Denigrating gratefulness. Yeah, my point is appreciation is a more powerful word because appreciation has no other end of the stick. You're not saying, boy, I appreciate that because no, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Like, hey, that's great. I appreciate that. But the other thing is that appreciate. It adds value too. It grows. It appreciates. So the more you are appreciating, the more it's growing. And then it becomes the dominant energy. That love and appreciation are the two highest vibrational frequencies, emotional frequencies available to us. So my point is, let's use them all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. To go back to add some scientific aspect to that, which is, I love what you just said. Another beauty of first thing in the morning is we take out our analytical mind because we're in theta brainwave. So as we're waking, we're in between dream and reality. And so everything's dumping directly into our subconscious. So we're able to tap into that momentum of the law of attraction even quicker. And I love the appreciation because it takes the comparison out of it. Like I don't
Yeah.
think I've thought about the gratitude or gratefulness because a lot of people can fall into that. I know I have. I'm so grateful for this because either it could have been this or it was this. And so
Mhm.
either way, I had great intentions and then I pivoted and was like, oh, energy is going in this motion. So I appreciate that analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really fun to start playing with. There's so first of all, let's just say this. There's no emotion that's a bad emotion. No emotion is bad. Emotions
Yeah.
are teaching us. Emotions
Yeah.
are lesson teachers, right? It's not, I don't go through my whole day and have nothing but good things happen.
Right.
It just doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
But I catch them when they're not what I want. And so, people have asked me, what do you do when you're having a bad day? And I just say, well, I don't have them. Not to say that everything's hunky dory and peachy all the time, but I don't allow things that I don't want to take over the momentum because I, I know where I want to operate. And so if something comes up, I want that instead and shift. I don't let the 15 or 16 seconds of momentum from law of attraction take over because all it takes is four of those thoughts.
Mhm.
I mean, it's four of them right in a row: worry, frustration, overwhelm, fear. Boom. When I was first starting down this road, I would ask people because I didn't have anything that I was teaching. And I would ask people, do you meditate? And they would say, oh, I've tried meditating. It doesn't work. And my next question would be, when are you trying to meditate? And most people would say, well, it's usually sometime in the middle of the day or, sometime when shit's hitting the fan or,
Right.
right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's the worst time to do it because you got so much momentum rolling down the track. It's really hard to stop. I mean,
Yeah.
trying to quiet your mind during that period. And by the way, I don't teach quieting your mind. I teach using your mind. Right.
Yeah.
So because we're made to think.
Mhm.
We've been thinking our whole lives. So why not use it to our advantage? It's a little easier than shutting it all off because we're not taught to do that. But
Right.
that's a whole nother topic.
That's powerful. And so many different avenues here we could dive into. So my question is, okay, you spoke a lot about these different levels of energy, right? And love and appreciation kind of being those top energies. I'm I want the listeners to know where did you learn these different energies? Where did you learn the difference in um, maybe a numerical value that they have, or where were you introduced to this idea?
So the first place was watching a bunch in between rides. And when I was driving for Lyft, I would watch Abraham Hicks videos. So I literally watched, I don't know, probably thousands of hours of Abraham Hicks
Yeah,
videos.
yeah, yeah.
So that was really the first sort of introduction to it. And then I learned about the Hawkins map of consciousness. And I started using that. Back then, I was involved in plant medicines, and I would use the map to measure the frequencies of plant medicine. And so people aren't familiar, look it up. Hawkins map of consciousness. It's everywhere. And it's basically, it's a muscle testing system where you can measure the frequencies of where anything operates. And it kind of acts like a thermometer, if you will. It doesn't matter if you're reading Fahrenheit or degrees. Freezing is either 32 or zero, right? So
Yeah.
it's just an agreed upon set of numbers. Um, so that's sort of how I got to understanding more about that is just kind of testing, you know?
Okay. So with this map of consciousness, which I learned from Dr. Wayne Dyer, the way that you listen to Abraham Hicks, like Wayne Dyer was my go-to. thousands of hours of like, oh my gosh, it felt like it was brand new information, but it felt so familiar as well. Like, no,
Mhm.
this is truth. And then I remember hearing him so vividly talk about this map of consciousness. And I mean, he spent like an hour and a half diving into the different levels of this. And that was kind of my first introduction of, well, wait a minute, we can actually change energy simply by shifting emotions. Like that was so profound to me. And then realizing that, hey, it's the world, like our life is not what happens to us, but how we respond to what comes into us, and understanding that all of our senses, what we see, what we hear, taste, touch, smell, what we think, that has to go through another level of what do I think about it? Like, how does this affect me? Right. And then right after that is the emotions. And it's going to take us on this emotional journey of wherever we want to go. And so, from the scientific standpoint, that was profound to me because when people would say our thoughts create things or your thoughts have the power to create whatever you want, that made zero sense to me because I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm thinking of creating something right now and it's not here, and but understanding that we're always interacting with the world and it's how we respond with it is so beautiful, so profound. And I'm encouraged by your journey to see the level that we could take this to. And so I'm curious for those that are maybe finding themselves in situations that, maybe they're not as well as they want to be. Maybe there's I don't want to say suffering from. They are experiencing a not optimal health, or their thought patterns are off, or having things that aren't the way that they want them to be. I'm curious your thoughts on where you think they should start. What is one thing they could start doing today, tomorrow, to bring forth this elevated change that they're seeking?
So there's two things. It's one of the things that I love about the specific plant medicines that I've identified or came to me, whatever, connected with me. There's very specific non-psychedelic, let's be clear about that,
Yeah.
plant medicines that are very high in vibrational frequency that have an influence on our physiology in so many ways that help us shift our thoughts, actually, literally help us in many ways. One of them, the Blue Lotus, is one of my favorites. I connected with a couple that have been doing plant medicines for over 20 years, and they've got a patent on a process that creates a fluid instead of an oil, makes it way more bioavailable. But the Blue Lotus itself is one of the highest vibrating plants on the planet. On the scale, the map of consciousness is pinned at the top. And just putting that into your system in a microdose way that we offer it helps to sort of shift your vibrational frequency. And when that happens, you start opening new pathways. That's one way. And
Okay.
and I love it because it doesn't take much. It doesn't take long for people to do that. But the other the other ways, obviously I'm gonna, say my system is the other way because I've been having people use my system for over a year now and shifting that before we even had the plant medicines. So, because what the target is activating your pineal gland and moving energy, condensing energy, learning how to move it up through your body, getting yourself grounded first, connecting to the energy you have, consciously connected to the energy that you have access to, cosmic and grounding, moving that energy up into the pineal gland. Um, that starts a process because when you put pressure on that pineal gland with that energy and you focus that energy there, um, things shift. And when you start experiencing those shifts, then that's another sort of wake up, if you will. People will go, well, wait a minute, I've never operated here before.
Yeah.
And that's really the key. It doesn't even have to be that. If you're around, like, okay, so for example, I had with my trailer rig the other Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I had a gal I've been trying to meet with for quite a while. She hasn't been feeling good at all for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to go into details about that. All of them very valid.
Mhm.
And it's cold here in Michigan. And we finally figured out a time we could get together because she has been in plant medicine, high level plant medicine for quite a while. And she's like, I want to see what you got, blah, blah, blah. It's been taking months.
Yeah.
And we set up time and she's going through, whatever she's been going through. And she almost canceled it because she wasn't feeling good and it was cold. So I pulled up and I took her to a spot where I know there's good energy because that's my job. And we started having a conversation and I turned her on to a couple of the plant medicines and we're just talking for about an hour. But after about 10 minutes of taking the plant medicine that I shared with her, she was like, wow, I feel better than I felt in a long time. And had a smile on her face. And that's when she told me, she goes, I almost canceled on you. And boy, am I ever glad I didn't. Because right now, I feel better than I felt in months and months and months. So part of it was the plant medicine. Part of it was the conversation because that's where she wants to operate. Same with everybody else. That's why you want to keep your energy high. And part of it was the energy, right? Part of it was just the energy environment. I had my trailer, I got myself, I'm a conduit. So when you put a person in that environment for a long enough period of time, it doesn't take long, then their inner being, their core, who they really are, says, I want that energy. And it will start coming out and dominating the lower energy frequencies. And when people have that experience, that's the shift. So the experience teaches it. And so that's why I offer a free 5-minute segment of my 15-minute, full system, because
Yeah.
if you just experience once or twice or 3 times, then you go, you know what? There maybe is something that's here. Because not everybody's going to be open and not everybody's, really available and understand, and everybody's in a different spot. So we can lead a horse to water, but can't make them drink. Everyone's heard that. But
Yeah.
we can certainly provide, tips, strategies, feelings, experiences where people will go, what is that?
Yeah.
And that's all, sort of one of my main intentions is just collaborate with more people to go out and be this and teach more people how to be this. And the more we have having that positive influence on everybody, whether it's, I'm obviously, I do the plant medicines and my stuff, right? The more we have people operating at these higher frequencies more consistently, the more influence we'll have on everybody. And then more and more people will come along. And that's why I call it a collaboration. Yeah, I'm a community collaborator.
I love it. And I love that illustration of people being and their being their true self. It's
Yeah.
it's their core being. And I can feel that energy. So thank you so much. Before we start closing it down, is there anything else you would like to share that maybe we didn't go over?
No, I think we covered it really good. Good interviews. Thanks, Eric. That was fun. If you're watching this, just hope we had a good positive influence on your thought patterns for the day, and ask yourself the question, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? Go find the answers. We've got answers. Uh, obviously I recommend my system because I proved that it works, but not everybody's going to be a coach for everybody. So go find somebody that resonates with you and start changing your thoughts. I mean, not changing them, but shifting them,
Yeah.
understanding what they represent, and then just start playing with it. And once you do, you won't go back. Like I will not go back to who I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just won't happen.
Absolutely. And yes, tap into that curiosity. We are all curious beings. That's at our core. That's why you look at any child under the age of, 5 or 6, they're very curious. They want to know, explore. We're no different. That's who we are. So be curious. As Drew said, ask the questions, and the questions to ask. You know what you're seeking. And in the day and age that we're living in now, of the time of knowledge, it's everywhere. You can find whatever you're looking for. So seek the answer to your question and be curious enough to explore. Give yourself permission to explore, have fun with it, and forgive yourself if things don't magically change overnight. You will feel a change. You will continuously feel a shift, but it didn't take an overnight timing to get to where you are now. It's not going to be overnight to shift everything that you want, but it'll come, and it's coming. And use that momentum of what Drew described, and tap into the law of attraction momentum, and wake up in the morning with the idea of, what do I want? Speak it into existence, follow it in your emotion, and reach out to Drew to utilize his tools and resources and his curriculum. And speaking of which, Drew, where can they find you, my friend?
Sure. So my website is youarepowerfulbeyondmeasure.com. All spelled out. youarepowerfulbeyondmeasure.com. And yeah, that's just it. One of the things that keeps people, I think, from sort of, like, people used to say to me, I've tried meditation, doesn't work, right? Because we're trying to, that's the wrong times. Timing's not good. A lot of people struggle with shifting their thoughts because they're so conditioned to shift the other way. What I like about the plant medicines, so we've got the CBD, Blue Lotus, lion's mane, all in a fluid form. They shift things rapid. Like, they will help you in certain various aspects of the body, whether it's the endocannabinoid system or nerve growth factor, or the Blue Lotus, which is helping to activate the pineal gland. It's a fast, rapid shift. And that helps because people experience something fast. Everyone wants something quick these days. And that's one of the reasons I like it. And then the other thing about my system is it's proven. It's like, when you do this for a week, just with the free one, you're going to feel different. Like that night when you go to bed with it, you're going to sleep better than you probably slept. And so, it is a long road. I hear people talking about a long road, but there are, I don't want to call them shortcuts. We'll call them, accelerated paths to getting to where you want to go.
Right.
And it's just a matter of knowing the tools. And so, yeah, I appreciate it, Eric. Seriously, I would love having these conversations.
Yeah, likewise. This was fantastic. And please know that I am super grateful for you. I appreciate you for being on the show and for sharing your wisdom. And we're going to have all your links down below. Guys, thank you so much for joining. This was fantastic, and I look forward to the next one. Please, if you like this, if it resonated with you, please like it, comment, subscribe, so we can get more amazing people like Drew on this network, and we can begin tapping into this quantum field of amazing humans together. And we can take this beyond our current status, and we can just change humanity in such a positive way. So until next time, be well, be loved. Thank you for joining me on Pep Talks with Eric, where together we shift our focus, embrace connection, and drive towards a more fulfilling life. Remember, it's not just about where you're headed, but how you choose to travel along the way. As you continue your journey, know that you have the power to change lanes and focus on the path that leads to positivity, purpose, and connection. Let's stay connected and continue empowering your journey one commute at a time. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. And until then, be well, be loved.